One of the most frequently asked questions is, how did the courthouse come to be in Goshen instead of Elkhart?
If you're sitting in the back row whispering to someone who's sitting next to you, as I sit here on the bench, I can hear what you're saying. Sometimes that's embarrassing to people in the back row when they get asked to quiet down.
This clock has been ticking every second back and forth for, other than a couple of times where it's been shut down for a week or two, pretty much continuously for over 140 years.
Used to have a lot of spectators at some of the trials. We used to have a full courtroom for some of the jury trials, especially the higher profile murder cases. Sometimes standing room only.
This painting is certainly one of the best kept secrets in Elkhart County. It's an oil painting on canvas, and it dates from 1860, which makes it over 150 years old. For the last 100-odd years, it has hung in the private office of the judge of the circuit court.
I had always heard that there was a tunnel that connected the jail with the courthouse to transport prisoners back and forth.
What I'd like to do is just kind of start and tell you how it got started in Elkhart. And that was by a gentleman named C.G. Kahn, Charles Gerard Kahn. He was a lot of things. He was an entrepreneur, he was a politician, but his love was music. He was so intrigued with it that in, 1874, 75, he started to import European instrument makers to Elkhart to help and teach him how to make musical instruments.
This year is the 150th anniversary of the opening of the Goshen Mill Race. And use your imagination on how that water would have flowed through a turbine and turned the turbine to turn the machinery, to grind the flour, to cut the wood, to plane the wood, and then you'll know why this mill race was built and why it's so important.
Crazy about you, baby, cause Caledonia's your name. Caledonia, Caledonia, what makes you beat me so hard? Caledonia, Caledonia, what makes you beat me so hard?
Some things that stand out to me in particular are the fact of the engineering quality of the clock. I mean, you have a timepiece that's essentially 6 foot long and 6 foot high, made out of steel and brass and iron, and it keeps amazing time for its age. It was installed in 1870, so it's nearly 145 years old. Under the right atmospheric conditions, it still keeps time within a second or two every week, which is amazing considering the size of the gears and also just the age and the amount of wear. I mean, this clock has been ticking pretty much continuously for over 140 years. And so that just fascinates me, how people could build machines like that. This slide mechanism flies into that snail gear, and that will tell it how many ticks of this it needs to have, which will signify how many times this turns around and rings the bell. The whole time that's happening, people definitely still, even today in a day of cell phones and instant time everywhere, people still do listen for that ring, and they're aware that it's here. And even though their time might be there on their phone, they're still listening for it. So it's an important part of the downtown persona.
A-hunting we will go, a-hunting we will go, hi-ho the dairy-o, a-hunting we will go. You know that song? Well, you may think that it's just a nursery song, but after years of my playing with my band in concerts across this country, it was that song that brought me fame across the United States of America. However, I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Charles Rogers, bugler and cornet player extraordinaire.
I was born on December 7th, 1904. President Roosevelt would later declare December 7th as a date that will live in infamy. My name is Dorothy S. Chalmers. I grew up on South 7th Street here in Goshen with my parents, a brother, and 4 sisters. And by the way, our house is still there after all these years.
I, Bernadette Shore Keeley, married George Washington Keeley in 1926. I wasn't born in this area. I was from New York City. When I was 3 years old, they put us on these trains. They called them the orphan trains. Mine was train number 23, and I was put in a car at the back. A man walked me aboard and set me down next to this young girl. She was probably about 7. And he told me that I was to smile and be a good child, mind my manners, do any chores that the Shores would ask of me. Well, he didn't know they were going to be the Shores, but they later would be. And that if I did that, I would get to be part of a family. And then he left, and the train continued on westward.
My name is Thomas Dart Walker, and I was born in Middlebury on December 11th, 1868. On September 15th, my illustration of his assassination graced the cover of Leslie's Weekly Illustrated across the nation. It was also a moment of personal tragedy for me, as I was personal friends with President McKinley and was actually in the process of painting his portrait at the time of his assassination.
Beyond the completed dam was a reservoir, and in the middle of that reservoir was the Hess Oxbow. 3.5 acres of that oxbow were high enough that they formed an island. By 1909, Amos and Alice Blosser owned the island and most of the land near it on the east bank of the river. Thus, the island became known as Blosser's Island. In 1909, Amos Blosser developed a park and a recreational resort on the island. He developed the island using his own funds, no government money involved. Electricity, all 200 lights, were provided on the island, and it soon became the place to gather for family picnics, reunions, Sunday school parties, and other public gatherings.
We all recognize this as Rogers Band Park, and it was also established in 1909. And you'll notice there's a raised pavilion. It could host all kinds of events, including basketball and indoor baseball, dances, social activities, but it's raised because it floods down there. This is a picture of Island Park baseball diamond. They could seat over 600 people at this field. And it was reported that there were over 1,500 people attending games there when the Chicago White Sox in 1911 and the New York Giants in 1912 came to town to play the Goshen Grays.